2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, section 18, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Southborough Housing Opportunity Partnership Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting or participate may do so in the following manner: www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's had a nice month off from us. Get right to approval of the minutes from November the 13th. Does anybody have anything to discuss or changes on those minutes?
Yeah, one stupid thing.
Okay.
It's silly, but it says for the motion to adjourn, and then the roll call vote, it had Jesse and
me
and Tom as voting yes, and they were absent. That was my only thing.
So, oh yeah, Jesse. So Jesse shouldn't be there.
Nor should Mr. Marcoullier. He was a slacker that day.
Omit. Okay, we'll make sure that we get those changes to Kate.
But that was it, you know.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion on the minutes? Can we get a motion to approve the minutes for November the 13th, 2020?
So moved.
Second, anyone?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, this will be a roll call vote as we are on a Zoom meeting again. Alex?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Jesse?
Abstain.
Okay, John?
Aye.
Chelsea?
Aye.
And Dorianne, aye. Okay, so those are done. Okay, I'm gonna jump right into the master plan committee. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Tom and Sarah. Please put any input or add to the discussion because both of you have been involved in the master plan. You have in front of you the actual discussion, I believe, of what Tom has talked about adding to the actual master plan for the town. So Tom, I'm going to hand this over to you if you wouldn't mind, and then because you are our expert on this discussion, and I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
No, the expert would be Sarah.
All right, you can, Sarah.
All right, so this section for the master plan is for the diversity of housing. So I hope everybody had a chance to read this document. So it's primarily driven all from the HPP. So the timing of these two documents happened out perfectly. So going through this stuff, if you notice all the bulleted items, that was pretty much a lot of the stuff from the executive summary, and we're going to incorporate that into the narrative of the master plan. So these, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bullet points will be part of the narrative, and the whole section is being created in the next several weeks, right, Sarah? So once we have some of the final versions, I'll be sharing it with the committee and stuff. But this is we'll call it the guts of the diversity of housing for the master plan. Now, there's on the second page, Dorian, this is the part where, this is the summary. It should be in. We spent a lot of time talking about with COG, with the HPP, so there should be nothing new there. But on the second page, I want to bring the conversation to some discussion.
So yeah, on the second page, column 1 would be the goals that would be appearing.
Can you see the second page? I can't see it yet.
Oh, can you see it?
No,
Not yet. It's not there yet.
Can't see this. Can you see my mouse moving?
no,
No,
Oh, okay. Let me.
Why don't you just try probably unsharing and sharing?
I will. Uh, hmm.
So while she's doing that, so some of the
Sorry
things
about that.
they did in the last master plan, I'm not sure how much they tracked it, is how do we track measurable accomplishments of each of the sections, you know, during that 10-year period that the plan is enacted. So when Sarah brings it up, so one of the things that we're going to be discussing, well, I hope to discuss, is inside the master plan for the diversity of housing, there are some measurable achievements that we can, you know, report later on, that we can track later on, that we can account for later on, of how the housing production plan went on. Well, thank you, in the plan. So as you can see, this is a format that all the different committees, groups, different aspects of the master plan used. So we didn't have to have a different format for every section when we discussed it. So in here, we did it very much like an Excel spreadsheet with a grid. So one of the things, and again, this content is driven from the HPP. So hopefully none of this stuff is going to be shocking you. So for example, the very first one, enhance local capacity. So again, a couple of proposed recommendations. Again, this is from the HPP, is strengthen and expand partnership within the town and state to develop housing. And then you can see some action plans. Those are the measurable things to do. So if someone 8 years from now says, hey, in the master plan, you had a whole bunch of proposed goals and potential actions. Did any of those actions happen? In this case, the 5-year strategic plan that's being developed right now. So we are going to take credit for that. You know, initiate connections with organizations, you know, reading the minutes from last week, that's exactly what we're doing, reaching out to potential land property owners and developers. So that way there we could say, hey, we did the things, we being, you know, this section of the plan, we did things that we said we were going to do in the next 10 years. Instead of like a dead document that we have no way to track any accomplishments, and I won't say brag about them, but to highlight that, you know, we did something in the last 10 years. The problem that was discussed early on, probably like a year ago with the last master plan, is they had so many, you know, tracking, you know, in this case, potential actions, using the same words, that a lot of them were not even achievable. A lot of them were just, you know, we'll call them meaningless. Some of them were like, you know, what is that? So we tried to tie things down to goals, to the potential actions, so that you can read it through across. And that's why we developed this grid for the meat of the section. I did talk a little bit, a lot. Any questions? One, you know, while you guys think of questions, so I want really everybody to make sure they go through the potential actions and see if you're okay with these. Because again, these are our measurable accomplishments in the master plan that, you know, we will hopefully strive for, or succeed or don't succeed in the next 10 years. So do take a look at the potential actions. Those are the key ones. I think, Sarah, did we get rid of the one about the educational one, which I think
We did. We did. You know, that was in the HPP, but we didn't feel like it was a priority item for this document. So we got rid of that one. So yeah,
I know, you know, if this is the first time you're chewing through this, that's fine. And we can always send me an email personally to me, or to actually send it personally to Sarah.
Either way.
Things that we want to include on some action items, some of these goals, you know, maybe we want to beef them up a little bit, or we want to reword some of them. Like I said, I'm going to stress this probably for the third time, is this is going to be in the document to measure success, to measure that we did something, to measure that says, yes, we developed a 5-year plan.
Has anything changed on this document since you sent it to us a few months ago?
Yes.
Can I get an updated copy then? Because
Sarah sent it out.
I sent it out like a week and a half ago.
Oh, I don't think let me look. Thank you. Sorry about that. I'll shut up.
Yeah, that's okay.
I remember
sent it out on
receiving it,
the-
but just as a thought, I just took a screenshot of that so we could do that and we'd have it.
Went out on the 22nd, John.
Thank you. 22nd?
Yes.
May I ask a question, Tom?
Yes, ma'am.
John,
Yeah.
so I have a list of all of the town-owned properties that have been donated via,
Sorry.
developers or whatever. Does EDC have a listing of some of these surplus municipal buildings, or any?
Municipal town-owned buildings? No.
No, business, or even businesses that are no longer in the buildings and we have empty buildings sitting there.
Actually, we'll have a report to, Suzanne Duca is giving a report tomorrow on vacancies. I know that I've spoken with 3 developers over the last couple of weeks. I've had meetings with them for their vacancy rates, and Ferris doesn't have any empty buildings. They're only at about 15% vacancy. Capital's at like 10% vacancy. No complete empty buildings. There's a couple that are empty that are for sale that people are purchasing. So the only major empty ones that I can think of right now are the Andrea the Cas building, the building next to the Andrea. Prime is moving back into Farrell. There's partial empties, but no complete. But I'll know more tomorrow, so I'll get back to you on that.
I would be interested in seeing if there are any of those type of buildings that are actually vacant and available to purchase.
Working on one.
Because we can turn that into apartments.
So the only real problems, like at least on Route 9, so so some of the problems is it okay to speak? I apologize. I don't mean to interrupt anybody's talking about the.
Well, I may have asked a very loaded question. So Tom, if you want to have this discussion later, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No.
This is here. We're discussing it, so it's in my head. I think that's the type of thing we can discuss that later. Let Tom finish
Infrastructure
this.
issues that affect as office buildings affect even more if it was housing. So trying to figure out that problem now, like the water and sewage problem along Route 9 for office buildings, if they have enough of a septic system to manage as an office building, it's totally different if you convert it into a housing unit because you need more septic. But then a couple of my talk to said the cost of putting wastewater plants instead of a bigger septic system there isn't as bad as they were. So we can talk about that at a later thing.
Yeah, but we're not in the, but that's not a discussion for Shopsy. I don't think it's wastewater. It's the housing.
No, but that's the problem with the housing in those buildings.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
Dorianne, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So on 3B for the action on a warrant article amendment that increases the threshold for multifamily housing from 2 to 3, will that limit a multifamily unit that maybe we could only fit 2 units? I guess what's the goal with that one, and are we could we potentially be missing out on a 2 unit?
So I can kind of speak to that a little. Right now in town, a 2-unit, like a duplex, is considered a multifamily structure. And in many other communities, that threshold is 3. So, it would be easier if the threshold were kind of shifted so that multifamily would be considered 3 and up. You could develop a 2 units, you could develop a duplex much easier as more of a buy rate rather than, considering it multifamily at 2 units.
Okay, so you're changing the definition of a mixed family unit so that a 2 unit wouldn't fall under multifamily. So I guess, Jesse, from your perspective on planning board, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree with that.
Okay.
In fact, one thing, Tom, I was wondering is if there's any consideration or discussion in master plan committee about accessory apartments. We've had pretty go ahead, sorry.
No, I was gonna say, no, this is the time to add it into it.
We've had fairly restrictive rules on renting accessory apartments and in-law apartments. It requires a zoning board, basically variance. So that might be something, this might be an opportunity to put that on there as well. And say, geez, if you have an in-law apartment, you don't need to go in front of the zoning board to get a variance to rent it out to somebody. We actually had a case on Main Street some years ago, or that comes to mind. And it would have been better for the homeowner and for that matter, somebody, a potential tenant, if the zoning board had permitted them to rent it out.
Yeah.
Jesse,
So-
I think that fits well in this
Yes.
same action item because it kind of goes hand in hand.
Okay.
Yes. We'll add it to a 3C, we'll call it.
Sounds good.
But is an accessory apartment for a family member, an in-law apartment? Does that really fit into our category of affordable housing?
Oh, well, why wouldn't it?
I'm asking. I'm just trying to clarify that. That's all. I'm just saying.
Well,
Before you answer that question, though, this diversity of housing is not all about affordable housing too. This section is not 100% about shop seeking. It's about housing. And I think with that, if it's affordable or not, that's the question we can have. But I just want to make a point that this is for diversity of housing.
Okay.
Well, Dorianne, when I think of what constitutes affordable housing, the first thing that I go to is it deed restricted and therefore eligible to go on to our DHCD inventory. Now, if we just stuck to that, we wouldn't really get too far.
No,
I think for this discussion, for this agenda item, it's more along the lines of just more a broader, okay, not a McMansion. Let's start there, and where, is it below, is it reasonably priced? Is it the type of housing stock that like a low moderate income person could afford? I guess.
I just wanted to clarify because, this is, what we're going to go with, and I don't want to do anything that's going to not fit into the category, but Tom's correct. This is also for diversity of housing. It's not just affordable. So that clarification just answered the question for me.
Okay.
So.
Doesn't apartments count as affordable, Jesse?
Well, not all of them.
But if it was small, I thought it could. I wonder if there's a way to make it that way. If it's an accessory apartment, it's going to be small. It's going to be inexpensive, I'm assuming.
Right.
Wonder if there's a way to make that so it does count towards it and counts towards the count.
Oh, I see your point. If it would have to be, that's a good question. And
if we start allowing these accessory apartments to be rented out and say it's just a studio, that could be considered affordable by standards, I thought, and it might count towards our census.
That's right, John.
I'm just reaching at straws, I know, but
the DHCD has guidelines and a process for submission of addresses and adding them to the inventory. And I'll tell you who's an expert at that is Karina Quinn, who I don't think is on this call, right?
No, but just to add a little bit to that, the deed restriction is really the key linchpin when it comes to getting on that list, among, other criteria. So I guess the homeowner in that case, if they had a unit that was an accessory apartment, they would have to, put on their deed that they are only going to rent that unit at a certain income level for the duration of that, 30 years, I think it is. So
So we saying that we'll investigate if we can include it into the affordable housing, but all these in-law, accessory apartments, we'll call them, are not all gonna be affordable.
No,
I
but-
agree with that, Tom.
Deed restricted.
Yeah.
But they would definitely, lend themselves to being included into additional, diversity of housing and capacity building.
No, this is a question I don't know the answer. So say my house, I put on an accessory apartment for my parents. And I deed that to be affordable housing. And then does my property, because that part of it is affordable housing, is going to be less than if I did not do that?
See, Tom, you raise exactly the issue. But right now, the way our code is set up, you couldn't even do that. You'd have to go, or let me back up. You'd have to go in front of the ZBA and get permission.
Yeah, saying I got all the permission, it's there, it's developed.
Oh, okay.
Do I get a tax break because that section of my house is now deeded to be affordable? And that could be an attractive thing to someone when I sell the house, that my
Yeah,
tax.
good luck trying to sell your house with that on there.
Okay.
Well,
That'll
but you
definitely
raise,
impact it.
you know what, Tom? You raised an excellent point that's like germane to this grid that we're looking at here. That's exactly the kind of thing that would be on let's ask the assessor, find out if that's a thing, and if it's not, maybe make it a thing.
Because I don't think that's a deterrent. If you're coming into town and you want an in-law apartment, you're going to look for houses that have that. And oh, by the way, it's deed restricted as affordable. And you know what? You're not paying, we'll say the whole tax for that whole property. This section of the property, being the in-law apartment, is actually taxed less. So I think that's an attractive thing. And buying it, and then again, how do you then value that part of the house? If it's family versus if it's not family. I think this could be a big can of beans, worms, whatever this.
Yeah, I think you're just opening a very dangerous area where you're going to upset
I thought that was one of the goals of the master
lot of
plan
neighbors.
committee. Just kidding.
I don't know if this is relevant, but in Sudbury, if you build an apartment attached to your house, in your lower level, and the au pair is living there, you can't have a stove. If a relative is living there, you can have a stove. And that's it's sort of snob zoning, I suppose. But in a sense, they literally, when you sell your house, you have to pull out the stove. Unless an in-law is moving back in, someone related is moving back in there.
But there's no way of managing that. You can't really say, oh, well, who's living in your accessory apartment? I mean, is it a family? It's kind of infringing on, you're invading their privacy.
Yeah,
I think it's a very slippery slope. I think it has to be worded very carefully. Is it a good idea? Absolutely. But I don't know how that would work. I'm not going to have to leave that to ZBA and planning, because that's gonna be very tough. That's going to be very tough.
But do we still want to put something in here about the in-law apartments?
Yes. I think so.
We should. I think we
Okay.
should.
Okay.
I
Yeah, I
just
think
don't.
so. In fact, I'm pretty sure in the housing production plan, we also said we were going to look at that, if I'm not mistaken.
All right. We'll add in a 3C in the potential actions there.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Thanks, Tom.
We need the experts to figure it out. We'll just throw them a convoluted idea and let them figure it out for us.
Sounds good to me.
Dorian, I have a question for Jesse, I guess, on 3. When you were talking about buildings that were available for potential housing, I'm looking at create zoning for multi and mixed use. Jesse, can you, by our code, are we allowed to have mixed use in an office building? I know a friend of mine works for Fidelity, and what they're doing in Boston on some of their buildings is they're turning office buildings into potential housing and office buildings. Are we allowed to have mixed use on Route 9? Not that this could happen, but I'm just thinking of the White's Corner or Charlie, whatever they call that building nowadays. You know, if there's vacancies above, like you could have the restaurants downstairs, could they have apartments or mixed use in the upstairs of something like that along Route 9? Is residential allowed on Route 9, or is it not allowed on Route 9? Is it not allowed in office buildings as a mixed use? I guess I don't understand. I should understand it a little bit better, since we're trying to get an article across with mixed use. But could that count as mixed use? Or is that?
Yeah, I'm looking.
You know what would be a
That's a
good
good-
place too is right across from the Cadillac dealership. That office building right there has a very large parking lot to the left-hand side. So John, what you were saying is keep the office or maybe small retail or whatever on the ground floor. And then I think it's a 3-story building.
Top floor could be apartments.
Could be apartments, yes.
Or could that be an option for somebody to do that if that would help with their vacancy rates? You know, as well. I mean, that might be enticing to whoever owns the building. If say, because supposedly we have a 28% vacancy rate in town. So that might be enticing to somebody to have the ability to do that in a building, and that might help us. And especially if they were considered affordable, if it's, you know, if they have one affordable apartment, all of them count towards our census.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Hey, John,
Yes, sir.
do you have like the zoning map up in front of you?
I don't. My computer, if I have too many things going, it's going to crash. I just got.
Sarah, do you have it?
I have the zoning map. Yep.
I just want to know the district that John's talking about.
Oh,
Is it highway business?
it is. It's business highway.
All
And
right.
does it change because of the where, like in location to the reservoir as well? I think it does.
There's a map. Yeah, I mean, there's like a geo, plot map. So
You're still gonna have the same problem if you add bedrooms. Can the septic of that building handle the number of
But some of
bedrooms?
them, like I was
That's the
saying, when I
base.
talked to some of the developers, some of the smaller wastewater treatment plants aren't as expensive as they used to be. Where they used to cost like $1 million plus to do, now you can do for a couple, $200,000-$300,000. And if it keeps your overall bottom line a little stronger, they may do it.
Yeah, I don't think the town's gonna start allowing little tiny wastewater treatment plants to
We already
start
do. We
popping
have
up all
enough in
over
town.
town. We do?
Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of mixed use, my understanding of the current code is that you have to get a special permit from the ZBA that proves that those two uses are compatible on the same lot. And then you can have two different uses on the same lot, but they have to be compatible. So for example, you could have a car dealership and a car wash. But currently there isn't language from what I've read in the code that allows two different uses, i.e. retail and residential on the same lot in the same building.
Restaurant, people eat food. Restaurants serve food.
You could
I was
definitely
thinking
make an
office, people
argument
need
to
to
the
work to pay for their
ZBA.
right.
This has been
In
something.
fact, I'm looking at it right here, and it says used by special permit accessory apartment. So
this
it
is
doesn't
something-
say the language that you were saying, John, exactly at all. It doesn't say like mixed use, multifamily housing. In fact, the only multifamily housing that's mentioned is for the elderly owned by a public or a nonprofit community housing organization. So the code as it is now for the area you're talking about is like restrictive for what you're seeking.
Yeah. So you think it's reaching for too many straws on that one? You think it's a possibility to change that, or?
What's the argument against it?
Well, my first thought is we already have, the VMUD on tap for the next town, I guess my question is when, are you thinking we would add it to like try to get warrant articles done now?
No. Moving forward, just
You
because.
mean just
it
like
would
at like
seem
at a
we're
future
working on
town
that,
meeting?
That's enough of a mission on its own, I think. But I think,
That's a good question, John. I don't know. I'm not sure why. That's probably a good like discussion item,
I
Sarah.
think it would be less controversial on Route 9 than it would be downtown. At least I maybe not.
I agree with you.
I'm having a hard time seeing why not.
What
Off
about
the
a
top of my
40,
head.
what about a 40R building? If we looked at something like that, because that's spot zoning that's allowed. Jesse, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Haven't we talked about that in this before? Didn't Tom Bizicle bring
Yeah.
that up before? Is he on
He
this?
did,
Tom,
but
are you?
he did, but I think it was more related to when we were talking about the downtown initiative. I don't know that we had talked, at least when I was on this committee. I don't remember talking about it related to Route 9.
No, I believe it was more for the downtown area that he brought up the idea of 40R. So we discussed 40R a little bit versus 40B, but not in this area.
Well, these are excellent points.
Closer to a commuter rail or something like that, though, to fall under 40R.
What's that?
I thought that a 40R has to be close within a certain distance. I'm asking, this is a question, not a statement. Has to be within a certain distance to public transportation. Is that correct? Not correct?
Yeah, I think I recall Bizicle talking about that.
But some of those places have the
knows all about this.
MWRTA. That's public transportation.
Yeah, and what I'm thinking about is the empty places. I mean, things that come to mind for me along Route 9 is Kaz, and then across the street you've got the Andrea and / I don't know what the stone building's called that are both for sale. I mean, if that's not a good enough spot for a 40R, because that's only as the crow flies, I'm gathering that's probably about a mile from maybe a little over a mile to the T station. So that would be
Do we know what the distance is that the buildings would have to be from public transportation?
I think a mile. I'm not sure, but if so, right now there's grant money out there for public transportation things, and it would be nice. Would just getting the bus running over to there, would that count as close enough? Having a bus stop on Route 9 for that to run from there to the T station. Maybe we even have one. I'll be honest. I don't know where. I know that our route number is 7. And I don't know where it stops or where it goes for the bus. I know that I have two stops. There's one over by Colonial Gardens, and one used to be in front of Turnpike Liquors.
There's one
So,
in downtown.
I think, yeah, I can see why we were looking at this more for the downtown area, because it has to be in a whole like zone.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna, you're thinking, John, maybe take the approach of making a section of Route 9 a smart growth zone.
Yeah.
Okay.
If possible. Yeah.
So let me read this. I got this off of the state website, and it's just 2 quick paragraphs. Section 3, in its zoning ordinance or bylaw, a city or town may adopt a smart growth zoning district or starter home zoning district in an eligible location and may include adjacent areas that are served by existing infrastructure and utilities and that have pedestrian access to at least one destination of frequent use, such as schools, civic facilities, places of commercial or business use, places of employment, recreation, or transit stations. A smart growth zoning district or starter home zoning district ordinance or bylaw, or any amendment or repeal such as ordinance or bylaw shall be adopted. Anyway, to me, it's kind of a tough sell that Route 9 has pedestrian access to at least one destination of frequent use, but.
No, but guess what does for both those properties? Parkerville Road.
Yeah.
Both sides of Route 9.
That's why I say the office building across from the Cadillac
True.
is a prime example.
Yeah, so by your criteria, Jesse, I'm just using the Andrea just for an example. So by your criteria, the Andrea, they said they put there's a smart growth there. You can walk to the school, you can walk to the park, the Lundblad Field, you can walk to the market, you can walk to New York Bagel on that side. So that counts as that. On the other side of Route 9, so that on the other side of Parkville on the south side, you could walk. Say it's a mile and a half to public transportation. It's also a mile to the school down there. I don't know if sidewalks need to be in place because, that would be the limitation on the south side anyway. But could that be done as a smart growth and put a 40R where
Good question.
on that piece of property, because that property is for sale? I think the Andrea is for sale because I know that they own the Andrea as well as that. Again, I'll call it the stone building in between that and the car dealership, for lack of a name. But I believe both those properties are for sale. So that could entice somebody if that was an ability to be a 40R and a smart growth. Because with the smart growth in the new housing bill, don't you get a lot of credits for that as well and possible grants for studies?
So I think the new housing bill, though,
Westboro,
John, you have to be a half a mile, I think, from
half
transit.
a mile.
I think so, but I don't know if your bus station counts. I didn't see that called out.
But I mean, at least if we could come up with possibilities for it, that again, I think it would be less controversial if we could do that along Route 9 and existing, I'm going to call, for lack of better thing, is blight properties such as like the Andrea. That would be a great insight. I mean, I'd rather see it at a restaurant or something like that, but I don't think that'll ever happen. I think it's just going to sit the way it does right now. But,
Sarah,
So
can we
one,
find,
one little sticking point for me was that I don't believe there's any requirement or connection with the DHCD inventory. I recall this came up before, and we
the 40R, the
couldn't.
smart growth, that doesn't.
Right.
Gotcha.
Now, I mean, I don't want that I don't want to close the discussion on that, because to me there should be a way to connect the two, and maybe we can have our cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
But
I thought if they do a friendly 40, I'm trying to remember Tom's conversation, and I thought if they do a friendly 40R, I thought if a couple of them, if they're apartments, then it does count towards the DCHD count.
that would be good.
Sarah, do we know what the qualifications are for the DHCD to give us credit for anything we do?
Yeah, I know some of them, but I'd rather put them in an email than try to
Can we get,
recite them by memory.
can we write up or get a copy of what their qualifications are for a property to be counted for us and get that out to the board so we
Yep.
can all take a look at that, please? That would be awesome.
And this
Might
is
answer
Chelsea.
some of this question.
I just had a comment on that, Dorianne, if I can.
Yes, absolutely.
So I watched a webinar yesterday that I'll speak about when we talk about strategic plan, but 40R was a big topic on that presentation, and it was all related to affordable housing. So I do think that is an avenue to get it towards our count. So I'd be curious to see, Sarah, what you have if there's something that doesn't allow it towards our count.
I believe that you can include 40R created units in your 40B count, but I'll make sure that is an accurate statement in terms of cross-reference.
Okay, I know our next meeting in February, we have Habitat for Humanity coming to do a huge presentation for us. But I think we need to continue this part of the conversation. Obviously, we're not going to vote or do anything on this today. We have other stuff that we need to get done, and we have kind of a hard stop for a couple of members. So I want to let Tom continue. Can we hold the rest of this discussion and move this? We can possibly get it in February once the Habitat program is done. We can discuss this more. Otherwise, definitely in March. Is that okay with everyone if we do that? This is something, we can't make decisions on this yet. I think we need more information and do a little more research to continue the 40R conversation. Maybe everybody get online.
Dorian, I just sent you and John Wood the link to the 40R.
Okay.
I just don't have everybody else's email address.
Okay,
So
thank
if you
you.
want to circulate the link, it's a pretty easy read as far as the legislation on 40R.
All right, I'll forward that to everybody.
Thanks.
Yeah, no
Thank you.
worries. But is that okay with everyone? If let's continue this 40R discussion and the possibility of doing something with this, is it the smart route or the smart road, whatever it's called?
Smart growth. But
Okay.
Mike, I didn't know if we could add some to that section 3, just to potential mixed use along Route 9 or anything like that.
We can, we have time. We can,
Okay.
like I said, we're gonna be developing the draft, the actual, document in the next couple of meetings. Just to put you some timeline, the goal, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong here, is to have this done by town meeting. So as we know, town meeting keeps on getting pushed out, so it gives us more and more time. To add, a 3B, a 3C, a 3D, et cetera, whichever action items, that's easily to slip into the document at the later stages. So we do have time is what I'm trying to say.
Well, we may want to add just the placeholder, Tom, if that helps for
Yep, we can put that
them
in.
to add 2 more spots. And then we'll have enough time to do a little bit more homework. Once Habitat is done with their presentation, we've asked all our questions and done that. And if we have time next month, we'll put this on the agenda to continue this conversation. Otherwise, we'll put it first thing on the agenda for the March. Try to get an earlier March meeting instead of waiting till the end of March, if that's okay with everyone. I just think we need more information before we can make any decisions and ask Tom to add this to the master plan. Everybody in
Sounds
agreement
good.
on that? Is that all right?
Yes.
For me.
Okay.
Dorian, can I just make a comment on number 4 quickly?
Yes, no, we're not done. Tom's going to continue this. I don't
Oh,
want to get
okay.
stuck on the number
I
3.
have a hard
And
stop at 9, everybody. I do have a hard stop at 9.
yeah, all right. So Tom, go ahead. Can
Yep.
Chelsea comment about 4 then? Go ahead, Chelsea.
Okay, on the senior work off, in terms of an action item, can we add that to see if we can max out on that program? I don't know exactly how that program works and what, how much we can engage, but I don't know that we're maxed out on that program. And obviously it's not running right now because of COVID. But did you talk about that in terms of action?
No, we didn't talk about that as an action. When you say max out, to make sure that we exhaust all the funds in that?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, how do you do that? I guess, how do you measure that if people don't apply for it?
So from my understanding, and I could be completely wrong, Tom, but there's a line when those slots open up for seniors to apply for those positions. So if we may max out on the number of positions that we have available. I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's fine. I have Zoom meetings where people's dogs are barking in the background. That's nothing.
Oh, yes. I have one of those too. Like 100% of the time.
It's usually mine.
So just to continue with Chelsea, if while she's on mute, I think she wants to put something in a trackable mechanism that we, make sure we utilize all the funds and that we make sure we advertise to the appropriate demographics that this program is available to encourage them to apply.
Right. So I would also add, Tom, we may be using we may have more available funds, but are we also creating as many positions as we have funds available for? So we may have $10,000, and I'm just making this up, of available funds for this, but we only have positions that can generate up to 7,000. So we need to fill the gap. And I don't know that this is the case or not because I haven't looked into it, but I think it's worthwhile to have somebody investigate it.
Agreed.
I agree completely.
Yeah, we'll try. I'll put some verbiage in that for some potential actions to make sure that we utilize it, like you said, max out the program, making sure that the seniors know about it, and make sure we have the, how many people apply. We can definitely fulfill
Okay.
their requirements.
I know historically
thank
the
you.
senior workout program is seriously underutilized.
Now, why is that, John?
I don't know, but I know it's usually really underutilized, that there's not a lot of people that are putting into it. Like, I think for me, a minute taker, especially now in the age of Zoom, but this year they're not having the senior work off, but that would be ideal. Somebody could be at home, watch the meeting, download the transcripts, and then just highlight what you need out of each piece, and they could be doing it. I mean, there's so much things that can be done with the senior work off now, but right now it's suspended. But once, if Zoom meetings or recorded meetings are kept moving forward, which I hope they are, because I think it's a wonderful thing for transparency, that might be easier for them. But I don't know why that not as many people are putting in for it, because there's some pretty good opportunities for them.
And another thing I was thinking, instead of just, I don't take this the wrong way, instead of like doing work, doing the minutes and stuff, I think part of this senior work off, the money for senior housing and stuff, taxes, is part of it's socialization too. If you can say, okay, one of these positions is to go into Finn every morning to be there to smile and welcome the children coming in. I think that's a
great idea. That's a great idea. I was actually just thinking they should do something with the kids.
Yes, the kids, something that you're not, when you leave after your 2-3 hours thing or whatever it is, it's not like you have to spend, a couple of hours on the computer to type something out. You're actually, made the children's lives happier, that you're welcome into school in the morning. I mean, to me, that's a warranted job.
Read it to them in the library, anything.
The library. I mean, the school, the library, anything like
idea,
that. Just, hey, you got someone coming around. How do you do this? Walking around. Hey, do you need any help?
Smiling at people when they pay their taxes, so they make it a better experience.
Yeah, so it is work. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a very valuable function. It's just that you can't measure it by saying, you typed up the minutes.
But there's a lot of things that can be taken out of. Again, this is my advisory hat coming in now. There's a lot of things that could be, taken off the tax roll if we could have hours, off of employee revenue that people could do as well. Because I think the senior work off is for anybody over 65. So some people may have some great skills for things that we could actually use in town as well. So I mean,
True.
I think the senior work off is a great thing, but that's a different discussion for how that can be set up in different things as well. Different committee.
Okay.
Which committee is that, for curiosity?
Probably Council on Aging, I would assume, and the Treasury, the town treasurer.
Council on Aging.
All
All right, Tom, do you have anything else that you want to cover with this portion?
No, I do solicit feedback, so send it all to Sarah. I will incorporate a placeholder. Well, I won't, the 3C that we discussed, potential action 3C will add in.
Yeah.
And the 3D, I'll put a placeholder for the 40 hours, so it's actually in the document, so we don't forget about it. And as these documents kind of like, we revise it, we actually put it into the actual section, I will be sharing that as well.
Perfect. So does anybody else have any other questions for Tom and or Sarah at this point regarding master plan?
No, thank you.
So I'd like to continue this discussion, if possible, after the Habitat for Humanity presentation, if not, first thing on the agenda for the March meeting. Okay, is that good for everybody?
Yes.
All right, Sarah, if you can remember that for the agenda, that would be great.
Just made myself a note, so we're all set.
Okay. All right, perfect. Okay, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Sarah, on the master plan segment. Okay, next discussion is the housing production plan implementation planning and what we need to do to get this moving. I am going to hand this portion of the meeting over to Chelsea because she has some suggestions and ideas. So Chelsea, are you good to go? Is she not there?
I'm here. Can you hear
there
me?
you are. Okay.
Okay.
I can't see you, so I don't know if you're there or you're not there.
No, I'm here. And you know what? I can go back on video now. Hold on a second.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So, so like I mentioned earlier, I sat in on a webinar yesterday that was actually recorded and it was free. So I would highly suggest that this committee at least look at the documentation or the slide deck related to it. And it was the third out of 4 in a series that Sarah had sent over to us. And I found this one to be actually the most helpful because it was from a development perspective and how different components come together to actually provide housing in a project form for municipalities. So I can send the link to Sarah, and Sarah, if you wouldn't mind sending that to everyone so that people can view it at their leisure. It was a little over an hour. But so essentially they talked about, from a strategy perspective, you have a 2-pronged approach. You have to deal with funding and you have to deal with what your project is going to be. So the property or the land, you know, everything that kind of goes into the project. So as I was thinking about our strategic plan, I think between this group, we have a lot of good ideas. I mean, look at the 40R discussion that we just had. I think that we as a committee can come up with our own strategic plan and don't necessarily need to go to an outside firm to spend $10,000, because as I was listening to this webinar yesterday, I was, okay, hold on one second. I was, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I was thinking that it would be nice to save the $10,000 to be able to spend money on, once we come up with what plan we want to do, some drawings of what it could look like. So that way we can go to apply for more funding. Okay, you got to leave it plugged in. Okay, I'll be right back. So anyways, so I think I just want to mention a few key takeaways from the presentation yesterday, just to kind of frame the thought process that I'm going through. So they mentioned that CPA funding takes about 5 to 10% of the I'm sorry, Olivia, of the project. I'm sorry. Oh my God.
You need a senior work project person there.
I need 2 on any given day. And so I was actually surprised by the low percentage of the CPA funds that were used in the projects. And I should have mentioned that MHP is the company that gave the presentation, and then Harborview Light, I think, was also involved, and they're a company that work with developers and actually do the projects with you. So then they talked about grants at the local, state, and federal level, and how when you apply for grant funding, it sometimes takes a few years to actually get those grants to come through. Like, you usually don't get it the first time. So just like for planning purposes, I think we need to keep that in mind, that, you know, if we were to go to town meeting this year and ask for money for a project, we may not get a grant to help us kind of get over the hump for another few years. Depending on the size of a project, you could get tax credits for it. You could get soft credit for it. So tax credits are for 20 plus units. Soft credits are for 5 to 20 units. So, and obviously the smaller the project, the higher the kind of overhead costs are, and it's harder to manage those projects. So the larger the project, then probably the less you could make them more affordable. So that's kind of like the project perspective. And I think that all these conversations that we're having about 40R and what land we have available in town, and those kinds of things would fall under this category. And so I think as part of our strategic plan, one of our items should be to look at larger projects and maybe work with MHP to help us identify developers would be willing, who specialize in this, right? Like they do these projects for affordable. So what I would like to do from this, and this is just my notes from watching the webinar yesterday and some of the research that I'd done, is I'd like to suggest that I work on a draft strategic plan and that I bring it to this committee. And I essentially put all the ideas down that I've had that I've found in other towns too. And this committee beat it up and see what we want to focus on and what we really aren't interested in or wouldn't fit for Southborough. And that if anybody else has any other ideas, that they send them over to Sarah, and that we kind of have a working document that we can bring and have a standing agenda item on this committee. And then the only other thing that I wanted to mention for another idea that I had is a program to proactively identify owners of houses who want to enter into converting their house upon sale to affordable. And a few other towns do this: Sudbury, Lexington, and Chatham. So I'd like to reach out to those municipalities and see how that program works. But for example, let's say that Dorianne wanted to sell her house for market value at $600,000, and DHCD comes in and says, okay, you can, if you want to make that affordable and deed restrict it, then you would sell it for $400,000. And so essentially the town would want to work with the owner to pay the differential out of, CPA funding or whatever funding you have, and deed restrict that and work with that owner to go through that process. So do a proactive approach rather than waiting for something to come on the market and say, oh, we should jump at that. And that way you have a fair and equitable program to have people apply for that. So that's kind of my spiel on some of the ideas that I have, and obviously I'm just one person, and I think there's a lot of different perspectives on this committee, and that's why I am suggesting that we try to do this on our own.
Well, I also believe that we should try to do this strategic plan in-house versus hiring someone for another $10,000, especially in this financial climate right now in town. I'd like to try to do it. I'm happy to step up my game and do some work on it and get the information over to Sarah to combine with anyone else who'd like to be involved. But I would like to see us try to do it in-house, not spend any additional funding, and see what we come up with. And if we're not happy with what we've done, we can always hire someone at a later date. I just think we should try to do it ourselves. I don't know if somebody has a different opinion than that. I also like Chelsea's ideas of talking with Sudbury and Chatham to see how that process of turning a house into affordable, if we have anyone who might want to possibly do that. I also think we should probably talk, and I can do this, talk to the assessor and see if there are any houses that are going in on the foreclosure auction block that maybe we might be able to purchase and have Habitat come in and renovate it and get it on our DHCD, list and get some credit for more affordable housing. We do have funds available to us. So I know right now in CPC, there's a little over $359,000 that's sitting in the housing bucket that has to be voted at town meeting to send to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, but that money is sitting there. So, and that does not include this year's, whatever we add to that bucket this year. That might bring that over 400,000. I don't know, but right now there's a little over 359 in there. We have just over $196,000 that was voted by town meeting that money needs to be transferred to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It's just sitting in limbo with CPC right now. It's not, it was approved. It needs to get transferred. We need to talk to Lisa Braccio to see how to get that taken care of, but that needs to get done. And the Affordable Housing Trust right now has approximately $71,000 in it. We still have Stockwell Lane that has not sold, but when that sells, the proceeds from that will come into the Affordable Housing Trust. And that should probably be around 200,000. I'm assuming it's around 200,000. So right now, based on all of that money, and when Stockwell sells, we're going to have a little over $800,000. But right now we have about, for us to actually use in the fund, we have about 300,000 that's available to us right now. Once we transfer the 196 and change, we can do something. But we need to find something that's actually going to work for the town, and not just jump and just do the first thing. We need to really think this through. That's why I think the strategic plan is extremely important. And that's, I think, is our next step that we need to accomplish. We've got the HPP done. We need to get a strategic plan, and then we need to keep moving forward. So I think baby steps, one step at a time. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to add to that? That's because
I'm like the master of stupid questions. What is our impetus to do a strategic plan at all? Is there some requirement that we have an additional plan that supplements the housing production plan? Because to me, the HPP is sort of inherently a strategic plan. Maybe I'm missing something. I am definitely missing something.
We're trying to implement the HPP, Jesse. We're trying to get it in almost a step-by-step process that we could follow to accomplish and get some of the stuff done on the HPP. So
well, there are goals,
HPP, but we don't have a step-by-step strategy to accomplish what we have in the HPP. And I think that's more what, and Sarah, correct me if I'm incorrect.
Yeah.
That is to help us. It's to help us accomplish what's in the HPP.
My understanding from the consultants who wrote the HPP is that some grant funds require an actual 5-year strategic plan.
Bingo. That's what I was looking for. Yeah. Thank you.
So because the HPP does have a lot of action items, but it doesn't cover kind of the dollars and cents. Also, it was understood from the interviews that those consultants did that the reason why there's these monies in limbo between the CPC and the Affordable Housing Trust is because there isn't kind of, again, on paper, how the funds will be expended. So kind of giving confidence, in terms of, turning that money over to the Affordable Housing Trust.
So I have a question for Chelsea. This sounds like a pretty big project for a volunteer, board member to take on. And I don't want to speak for Don Morris, but I know from being on planning with him, he's and I agree with this. Like, we kind of want to protect our great resource like Sarah and Karina. So for that reason, I just want to kind of explore hiring this out so that we don't burden our planning department with something that we actually have the resources to, do with a consultancy.
But I'm sorry.
Go.
Tagging on to Jesse's thing, though, we have the HPP. Just looking at the master plan, there was 5 points and criteria to that. I'd be happy to help Chelsea do this. I think it's a really good idea to try it out on our own and not burden Sarah, because I know planning is overwhelmed as it is with all the different things that's going on. But if we could get some type of a draft and then show it to planning and Sarah, and then move from there, maybe the burden wouldn't be on her as bad as you think. And I think it's a big take on for one person, but if a couple people work on it and everybody sends in some, I think we could come up with a pretty decent document on our own, because we're not reinventing the wheel. All these things are in all these different documents over the years. They just need to be combined and maybe fine-tuned on how we're going to do it.
Well, no, I mean, working with a consultant has the same requirement from the planning board and the planning department. So if literally, you know, volunteers are willing to do the work of the consultant to save $10,000 of the town's money, that's great.
I'd be willing to help.
I'm willing to help.
Just-
I have no problem with doing it. I just, even if I type up, I'm happy to type up and drop, you know, a rough
Yeah,
idea of what we want to do, and then to have everybody look at it. And then if we want to finalize it,
so Jesse, so just to clarify, the only reason why I said send it to Sarah was to avoid open meeting law. That was my only reason to
that's
have Sarah
okay.
do anything. I wasn't thinking that Sarah was going to do anything more than just add everybody's into a document that I was just going to create the shell for. So
just to interject into everybody's thinking, I did reach out to MAPC, and this type of work would be covered under District Local Technical Assistance Funds, DLTA funds. So if we wanted to at least apply for those DLTA funds, if we were awarded those funds, we could use them to pay a consultant.
Well, I think we should do that.
Yeah.
is that a grant application, Sarah?
Yeah, it is. And
Okay.
so, you know, my contact there said that if this committee was interested in applying for that type of grant, that she would help me walk through the application process, and we could kind of go from there. So maybe we could sort of kind of go at it from two angles, you know, if we wanted to start kind of drafting something on our own while we're going through the application process and kind of see where the chips fall.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
That's great.
I'm of the mindset, Chelsea, if you want to take the lead on this project, with the help of all of us, who can help, I'm of the mindset, knowing you, not as well as probably other people, but just seeing the way you've been on this board and the Board of Selectmen, I think we're going to come up with a great plan all on our own. And I would like to keep it in-house, at least try. That's what my mindset is. I think we should try. Let's apply for the grant. I can help do that, Chelsea, if you'd like. I don't want to burden Sarah either. I mean, Sarah's phenomenal.
Yeah, I don't either.
No.
And
So, I'm
I
happy to
hope
type
that
up.
I hope I didn't come across like that. That was not my intent.
You
I
did.
absolutely.
You
Okay.
didn't.
Okay.
This is just based on my experience with different
Sure.
projects.
Okay.
It's always more burdensome and complicated than initially we
Yeah.
think it's going to be. That's all I was.
Okay. So Dorian, I'm happy to do that. And maybe Sarah, I can talk to you offline about the grant and if there's anything that I can help with on that.
Sure.
And if we can kind of do it simultaneously, and to Jesse, to your point, maybe we'll get to a point in our kind of digging and decide that we actually do want to hire someone. I just thought that we have so much information kind of everywhere, that we could try to streamline some of that in-house.
Sure.
That's going to be, even if we decide to go with a consultant, I think doing that legwork is well worth it anyway, because it'll help the consultant come up with a better product. So that's
Right.
great.
Okay.
All right. So I don't think we need to vote on this. We're going to do it in-house. Chelsea, I'm going to give you the lead on the project. I'm happy to step up to the plate, whatever, whenever. I have plenty of time to do it. Except when I'm in Disney. And since I can't go to Disney, I have all the time in the world. But I'm happy to do whatever. Just give me a heads up what you need me to do. You have to, because of open meeting law, you guys can send it to me or send it to Sarah, but you can't send it to anyone else. We don't want to have any open meeting law violations on this committee. All right. Does anybody have any other questions or any more discussion points on this?
So just to summarize, I'm going to send Sarah the link to the webinar from yesterday. I'm going to touch base with Sarah on the grant opportunity. And then I'm going to start with a shell for strategic plan and then just put all of what I have in there. And then anyone else can just send, I guess, Sarah, are you okay with if somebody has an idea to just send it to you
Sure.
for now?
Yeah, that's no problem.
Okay.
I can be the funnel through and out. No
Okay.
problem. Yep.
Okay, and
Thank
then
you.
let's give a little bit of time to work on this. So what I'd like to do is push this to the March board meeting. So that gives us roughly, what, 6 weeks, maybe a little more, to do some legwork on this. And then just discuss where we're at, how's it going? Oh my God, it's too overwhelming. We need to hire someone. I think we'll get a feel for it by that point. So we'll add this to the March agenda, not February. I really don't know how long it's going to take for Habitat to do a presentation. The last time I attended one of the presentations, it was about an hour and a half. So I have to plan. I don't want to overload our agenda and give you guys a 4-hour meeting. So I'm trying to be a little considerate unless someone objects to that and they would like to get this in March. I think in February, I think we need some time to work on it. Okay, so we don't need to vote. So, okay, that's that. And the Affordable Housing Trust, that was the same conversation here. I've already gone through the numbers, so we should be good here. Does anybody have any questions or anything else they'd like to talk about today?
I do.
Yes.
May I?
Yes, absolutely.
The VMUD. So unfortunately, when I got like overwhelmed with professional work stuff, I missed the joint meeting.
You mean paying
with
job stuff?
Shopsy. What's that, John?
You mean paying job stuff? That unimportant thing?
Yeah. Believe it or not. And so I'll cut right to the chase. There was a change in the VMUD on the affordable housing piece that I'm not in agreement with. And I want to be, as cool about this as possible. I basically probably wouldn't vote to support the Warren article with the change that was made. And it's funny because I was talking to John yesterday offline and he was like, oh yeah, that was at the meeting you missed. And I'm like, So Dorianne, I don't know, is this something that we can air out now or do we have a couple minutes?
Well, it was a meeting, the last meeting, I believe it was the discussion. Yeah, as long as we don't vote or do anything, we can have a small discussion on it because we've already discussed it. You didn't have an opportunity. So yeah, let's do it. Go.
I kind of
no one's going to get in trouble as me. So go ahead.
No, well, if I don't, not to put you on the spot, but if you're comfortable sharing your point of view on it, I would like to hear it.
My point of view?
Uh-huh.
Right now, I'm not in support of it either. So
okay.
There's a few things that I'm not real happy with either. But personally, right now, I mean, I'd have to reread it and do a little more thought behind it. But as it stands right now, I am not in support of it.
Okay.
May I ask what you don't support? What you don't like about it? We did have some feedback from everybody.
I don't remember off the top of my head, John. I just know when at last I looked at what was going on, I was not happy. But like I said,
here's the deal.
I have to look again.
They switched it. I had it from 4 units and up, 25% affordable, which 25% affordable is actually not that crazy. Like there's a huge development in Suffolk Downs where the abutters and a lot of activists said, hey, if you're going to put in 1,000 residential units, 25% of them need to be affordable. Now that's East Boston. So obviously we're talking completely different things. But my point being that the percentage is not really in the history of planning that crazy or restrictive. So anyway, we had 4 units and up 25%, and now it's 8 units, which I'm not sure we're going to see how. I don't see an 8-unit apartment building going up at the corner of Main.
No.
Sorry?
Anywhere in that piece of property, downtown. I agree with you, Jesse.
And only 12.5% affordable.
Yeah, it's
So
not workable.
I I have feelings about.
Well, the final draft that you got, Jesse, by the way, was the Board of Selectmen and Lisa put that together with everybody from, that was the collaboration of the meeting of the 24th. I know EDC had a couple of meetings afterwards where we made changes and addressed the affordable housing as part. I'll send you, I'll have Marika send you what we had sent for a draft afterwards with our changes that we didn't like as well. So hopefully these things can be hammered out at the hearing afterwards, because I agree with you. I had said, because Judy Barrett had come back and said that it would be hard because it'd be too restricted because there's no area down there that, everybody's thinking it's just going to be a large scale development. Where? How? It can't happen. You know what I mean? So the biggest building that could be there is an existing building, which is, I don't know the one that the dental office, the Santander Bank was in, or Sovereign or whatever it was. But so I had said, under Sam's suggestion, actually, I think, the 25%, if we could do it by ownership and or rental, because that would have covered it under affordable as well. And then if 25% of it, just one was a rental that was deemed affordable, all of them would have fallen under that. So I agree with you, and hopefully that stuff like that can come out at the hearing, because we had made changes that did not wind up in that final document as well.
So can I just, so I think we're getting a little off topic here, because Jesse asked a specific question about affordable housing. So I think we should just stay on that
The
topic.
affordable housing part, that we had put that in it. So he's saying it wasn't into it, and he disagrees with it, but it tried to, so hopefully we can at the hearing.
Yeah, so Jesse, Dorianne and I were on representing Shopsy for that meeting. And if I can kind of just explain to you the conversation that happened and how we ended up back at the 8 is I had actually put on my feedback initially when we went with the first go around to say, make it at least one unit affordable, no matter how many units are in a building. And I think maybe you and EDC had suggested 4 units and then 25%. And when Judy Barrett was on, she really dissuade us from doing the 4 units at the 25%, because her perspective is that the developers who would want to build in that type of section of town would not they would not be interested in something that had a 25% requirement on a 4 unit. So I mean, I expressed my thoughts that I really felt like it. I struggled with it because I am obviously on Chopsy and want to represent affordable component to this project. I just didn't want to dissuade anything from going in there because there was an affordability component and have nothing get done. So I think that's where I struggled with what the right answer was for this. And so I completely understand your perspective, but that's kind of how we ended up back at the 8, was because I felt like the 8 was better than nothing. And if we had the 4 and nothing happened, then why bother with doing the downtown initiative?
So Chelsea, one thing I've gotten real good at is respectfully, not being in 100% agreement with everybody in town, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not, if this is the way the document is, I'm probably going to vote against it. But I appreciate your explanation, and that's okay. It is what it is. I certainly understand I understand that rationale and Judy Barrett's line of thought, but it's okay for me not to agree with it.
Oh, I completely agree. I just wanted you to know kind of how we ended up back at the 8. And am I happy about it? I'm not. I mean, so I felt like I had a decision point. Either we put in the 4 and nobody wants to build on it, so we essentially improved nothing, or we go to the 8 and something gets done, and if there happens to be 8, then we get a unit. It was, and maybe Jesse, maybe there are developers that would do a 4-unit with an affordable, she just made it sound like that's going to be really hard to find. And so for me, it was like, why are we even going through this if we're going to limit it so much and not get anything out of it? And that's really, and I explained this at the meeting so that, you know, your board and EDC and selectmen understood that this is not what Shopsy wants, because we want to help people be able to afford to live in town. But if we're going to restrict it so that we're not getting, I mean, I look at the downtown initiative as multifaceted, and if we're going to limit it so we don't get anything, I don't see the value in it. And so I completely understand what you're saying, and I think it would, if we knew that there were developers that would come in and do the 4 and do an affordable, I think that's awesome. It didn't sound like we would get that.
No, it didn't seem realistic that it was going to get done. So there's this housing component, but it's so unrealistic. The percentages are so unrealistic. The possibility of a builder wanting to do that project with an affordable component as it's written is so unrealistic. That was one of my biggest problems with it, now that I'm remembering the meeting. Jesse, you know what you probably should do, and you have so much spare time on your hands, you should probably go in and watch that joint meeting, and then you can get a feel for where everybody was going.
That's a good
suggestion. You know what I'll do, Jesse?
Go back and watch it again too.
I'll shoot you a note with what minute to start at, because it was a long meeting.
Oh, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
I think that would be, because I felt like I got a little not emotional, but I was passionate about doing it, but I felt like we were going to miss out on everything else. And that was my struggle with it. So hopefully, I'm not trying to change your mind, because I agree with what you're saying. I just don't know if that's the right answer for this particular area.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe I do need to hear it from Judy and hear her.
Okay.
Her
I'll try to find it for you today and shoot it to you.
Yeah, but if you watched that, Jesse, I think you'd kind of get a good feeling about what other people were thinking at the same time. I just don't think it's realistic the way it's written, that it's going to happen.
Well, I want thank you for going into this. I know it wasn't on the agenda, but I wanted to get it in committee because I'm playing catch up, and we have the public hearings coming up for this warrant article very soon. So
absolutely, no issue at all. I'm glad you were able to ask your questions and put your input on there. But suggest watching the meeting. And
I will.
Sarah, why don't we add this, a discussion about this again? I would add it to the March agenda.
Well, are we having a February meeting, Dorian?
We are. So February 25th, we are scheduled with Habitat. We can add it to the end of that meeting as well. If we have time, we can go ahead and discuss it. I just don't want to give you guys a 4-hour meeting. And I know that's a while.
We may want to end it or put it at the end of that meeting, since the public hearing is going to be opening on the 22nd.
Okay, then let's add it. All right, so we'll add it to the agenda.
Probably some more to discuss.
Okay.
Hey, John.
Yes.
This is on the agenda for EDC tomorrow as well, isn't it?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. I might virtually swing by, Mr. Chairman of the EDC.
I'd love it if you could. I'd love it if you could.
Chelsea, I don't know. I don't want to drag everybody else into this, but anyway, I'll try to make it tomorrow, John. Just give me a heads up.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Does anybody have any other questions, concerns, things you'd like to just kind of talk about for a second? Anything?
So, Dorian, if we are going to have an earlier March meeting, and our next meeting isn't until the end of February, can we just set a date for the March meeting now?
Yes, that's a great idea.
And I'm not sure if anybody else can do this, but Friday or Tuesday mornings would be better for me, so that I don't have screaming kids in the background.
All right, does anybody have any any problem with switching it to a Friday, or would you say a Tuesday morning?
Yeah.
Either work fine for me.
How about Tuesday, March 9th or Friday, March 12th? How does that look for everyone's schedules?
The 9th is better for me.
Okay, Tuesday the 9th. How is that for everybody else? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. Why don't we do Shopsy then at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, March the 9th?
That's good.
Sarah, if you could book the Zoom. Do you guys want to set a second meeting in March at the end of March? And if we don't need to do it, there's nothing pressing, and our conversations are kind of handled by then.
So are we doing a Feb meeting at all then?
Yeah, February 25th. That's when Habitat for Humanity is coming in.
Okay.
So hearing the VMUD discussion and you know, some of these ideas that were coming through, does it make sense to do an earlier February meeting so that we can maybe meet before the hearings start? Jesse, I guess from a planning board perspective.
I would absolutely prefer it, but
Okay.
I don't know how that fits, because if we already have Habitat for Humanity booked, so you're saying just add a meeting? I
Add
mean,
a
that's
meeting.
okay with me.
I mean, we can add an earlier February meeting. You want
For
to
like the 16th or the 9th or something?
yeah, we can do like the 9th or the 12th, the Friday, the 12th. How's Friday?
That's okay with me.
Oh my God, how is February 9th, Tuesday, February 9th? How does that look for everyone?
Good.
That's fine.
Okay, so we'll do that one at 8 a.m. as well. And then we can take some of those discussions, Sarah, that we were going to throw at the end of Habitat, and let's move them up to this meeting.
Sounds good.
What was
That
the
way
March
we-
date again?
March is March the 9th,
Fine.
Thank you.
March 9th, February 9th, March 9th.
Okay.
And Feb 25th?
And
Yes.
yeah, and February 25th.
Okay.
I can send out an
Cool.
email with all these dates.
So I don't think we'll need a second March meeting then if we're going to have a second February meeting.
So do you want to move the March meeting a week later?
No, I think we should leave it. I think we'll be fine
Okay.
because really the 25th is pretty much going to be Habitat because we're going to move everything else to the earlier February date.
Okay.
So I think we should be okay. The question would be if we wanted to do a second meeting in March. Do you want to just schedule something and we can always cancel it if we don't want to do it? If we don't have anything to discuss?
May not be a bad idea. I don't know the availability of meeting rooms, meeting times.
We have three rooms now, so we
Oh,
should
nice.
have less of an
You
issue.
want to do like Tuesday, March 30th?
I'll be away,
Okay.
but go ahead.
You want to do Friday, March 26th?
I'm still around for that.
That works.
Is that good? Friday, March 26th? All right, so
These are all 8 a.m. starts, right?
yes.
Yes.
All right.
We can start earlier if you guys want to start earlier. Do you guys want to start at 7:30?
Nope.
Look at Sarah. No. Okay, 8 o'clock. Hey, I've been up since 2 a.m. this morning. I woke up with a really killer migraine and went, oh my God, I have a meeting this morning. No. Got up, went down and had a banana and took my headache medicine. And by 6 a.m. it was gone. I was like, oh, thank God.
That was March what again?
March.
March 26th.
20
I'll send out a list of these dates so that everybody has them.
Please. Yeah.
And we don't have to have that one if we don't need it, but if we need to carry over discussions, I would prefer to at least have it set up so that we don't run into, oh, there's no room for us. You guys want to set April now too, or do you want to hold?
Can we hold?
Yeah, okay, that's good. All right, does anybody have anything else? So we'll see everybody on February 9th.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay,
Second,
Second it, because I'm leaving.
okay, roll call, John,
Aye.
Chelsea,
aye.
Jesse,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Dorian, I. Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you on February 9th.
See you then. Hey, John.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So for tomorrow morning, do you think, would I be allowed to participate in that agenda item with you guys?
Oh, of course I would.
Okay. I'm probably gonna jump like in and out. Like you guys start at 8:15, right?
I believe so. Yes, sir.
And it goes until like the first, like if I jump on at like 8:30, that you probably would like be still on that agenda item, possibly, right? Based on your experience. I haven't been to an EDC meeting in about 5 years, so I don't know how you guys work.
Yeah.
I have the agenda in front of me if you want to know what's on it.
Yeah. I'm pulling it up right now. Sorry. Trying to do 10 things at once here. Lisa's texting me.
Like Suzanne has a vacancy report.
Yes.
You guys, yeah, actually, you guys have a bunch of reports in front
Yeah.
of this agenda item.
The other
Do you
reports,
follow the agenda like in order usually?
usually, but I can bounce it around.
Oh, okay, cool.
I can bounce it around, but I can open the meeting tomorrow and say that you're going to be attending.
Okay, cool. And so, is it like how I haven't done this before? Like try to access a meeting to via public. Like,
So
is
what
there?
you can do is you can go. I can send you the link. I guess.
Oh, that'd be great.
You can go to the town website and you can click on it,